You're tuned in to Positively Terrible. I'm producer Dan, and each week my buddy Scott and I discuss surviving and thriving after trauma. It's a journey that started when Scott, his wife's fiance, and her boyfriend all walked into a bar. This week's decent human being is George. He's got a fucked up story about a devastating injury. Settle in, my terrible listeners. Today's episode is going to be positively terrible.
I was nervous and stressed because I thought you were the best. I was right.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, Dan. What's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you tonight?
You know, I've got a little bit of a headache, but I feel like my beard is almost on point. Like maybe it needs to be trimmed a little bit, but I think it's looking pretty good lengthwise and everything. I'm sorry, I'm staring into the camera and I can't help but judge.
This angle looks good.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I hope to have this angle anytime I speak to someone. But how are you doing? How's Lando? I haven't asked you about the dog recently.
Lando's doing very well. He went to doggy daycare today. They love him at doggy daycare. They say he gives the best hugs of all the dogs there.
I was gonna say, do the other dogs love him as well? I guess if they don't,
man, he runs them ragged.
If the other dogs don't, they tell you not to bring them back, though, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
You gotta pay for private time.
Okay. I gotcha. All right. Well, I haven't met him in person yet, so I'm hoping to soon. I know that mile and a half that we live apart from each other is a large bridge to gap, but I'll head over one of these days and meet him in person. But right now we have George here. George, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Scott. How are you doing?
Hey, I'm doing pretty well. And what brings you to the show today, George?
Well, I had this devastating injury in a job that 22 plus years in it that I love very much. And it just kind of happened all of a sudden, just changed my life forever, which is why I'm here today.
Oh, wow. There's a lot to unpack there. I mean, we've talked on the show about injuries and we've talked about job loss, career loss, but put those two together and that's life-changing. So I'm sorry you went through that. So can you tell us a little bit about this injury, George? Was this something that happened on the job?
Yeah, I was in warehouse distribution logistics for 20 plus years, and I had a slip and fall. I actually tripped over a pallet of product, and it spun me around, and I fell with the product in hand that I was carrying, and it dislocated one of my lower discs, one of my mid spine disc, and one of my neck. And it disabled me for about 3.5 years. And two and a half years of that, I was heavily medicated. I was depressed. I had suicidal thoughts because of the medication. And I mean, that was pretty fucked up, to be honest with you guys. You know, I mean, I hadn't gone through something like that in my life. So it was really new to me. And one day I decided just to kind of snap out of it and I pulled myself out of the medication completely, you know.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm glad you got there, but we're not at that part just yet. I want to talk a little bit about this. So you said you'd been at the job for, did you say 22 years?
Yeah, I was in that industry for about 20 plus years, 22
Okay,
years.
right, the industry. So wait, how young were you when you started?
I was about 19 years old.
Oh, wow. How'd you get into it?
One of my cousins worked at a company, and he told me about it. And I was working part time, and I was like, "Look, man, I'm looking for something. Either I'm gonna have two jobs, or I need a full time job." And his job was he was working like, 40 hours plus, and sometimes Saturday and Sunday. I was like, you know what? I'm 19. I'm hungry for some money. I want to work there.
There you go.
And I was there for 20 plus years in that same industry. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to sit here and assume that it was hourly. If you're happy about those weekends and extra hours.
Oh yeah. First, I was hourly for probably about 5 to 7 years of that career.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Clocking in a lot of overtime money, definitely for sure.
Yeah, and working in a warehouse, I know that it can be dangerous. I mean, I'm telling you, right? But Dan and I have worked on at a company that was a safety company, and manufacturing, warehousing. That's kind of where the safety products that we were working with are really, really important. So I am going to take the conversation that way a little bit. When you were injured, or just in your career in general, was safety in your industry, is it something that was really focused on?
Well, I mean, there was always safety concerns in my industry because people, like you said, people were always getting hurt. Their backs would get messed up, their knees, their wrists were getting messed up. And so we would always go through training, and we would have people from the outside come in and help us figure out these injuries and how to prevent them, like getting back braces, maybe wrist things to tighten the wrists, and train us how to go down bend our knees instead of the waist and whatnot. So we had those trainings, but just sometimes you forget the training, and you do things, and somebody might place something where they're not supposed to, which was exactly what happened to me. Somebody put something where it wasn't supposed to be at. I didn't see it because when I looked over, it wasn't there. When I went to travel over there, that's when it caught me off guard.
Okay. And I say this sometimes in personal conversations, like, what is a moment, right? We've got millions of moments that we experience in our life. I don't know how you count that into a day, but you can be very careful and very attentive for 99.9999% of the time, but all it takes is that just moment. And that pallet was in a place that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Okay. So that's a moment where somebody might have done something. And then do you feel like you were paying attention when that happened?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It could have been prevented because, first of all, I placed the pallet there, but I placed something on the pallet on a corner so I can see that was there.
Okay.
So I knew there was something there, and then we were doing some cleanup at the end of a shift, and when I look in that direction, one of the crew, somebody in the team, was picking the pellets up.
Okay.
And he said that he had cleaned up the area, which was the area where I put that pallet with that stuff there in the corner so I can see it. And when I looked up, I didn't see anything. Everything was completely clear. So then I grabbed a box that I was carrying, a 50-pound box, and as soon as I started walking, I turned the corner, it clipped my right foot. And when it clipped my right foot, my first thing was like, nothing's supposed to be there. Right? And
except your foot.
and I couldn't see anything. So I was trying to maneuver with the weight, and I fell. And when I looked back, I saw the pellets. Like, wait a minute, that wasn't supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Because I was told that everything was cleared up because I put something there in the corner so I can see it because it was a blind spot. I had taken care of that safety issue for me. Okay. So it's like I was lied to, and I felt very disappointed by being lied to.
Yeah, and did you harbor any resentment towards the person who had said that it had been cleaned up?
No, I didn't. Okay. I didn't blame anybody. It was an accident. It happened to me. It could have happened to anybody else. It was timing. Maybe he said I was already done, and he was going to travel over there to pick it up and say, "Okay, now I'm really done." Right. It must have been just timing. So I never blamed him for that.
And when the injury happened, so you fell right there on the job. Did you know you were injured right away? Did it hurt right away?
I didn't know that I was injured. I didn't feel injured, but I knew that it could be bad. I did know that. Because what I noticed and felt that my body started to warm up from my waist up to my chest, the back of my spine. And I was like, that doesn't feel good. Nothing hurts, but that doesn't seem right. Why am I warm? Because the injury had occurred.
Yeah.
And did you get that checked out that night, or did you just go home? And what happened after that?
Going home that day, a couple hours later, because my body was starting to cool down, the first thing that I noticed was something in my neck. That was the first thing that I noticed. It was like this, almost like a sharp knife being pushed in the back of my neck. And then The next morning, though, that's when it really kicked in, because that's when it really cooled down.
You may not have an answer for this, but would it have caused less damage if you had immediately gone to get help? Or do you think taking, the rest of the day and however long it took to get to a healthcare provider, do you think that there was more damage that had been done?
I don't think so. I think what could have prevented it was me not having that box, even if I would have tripped, because of that extra weight. But sadly, in that position that I held, because I wasn't the person in charge of that particular part of my career, and there was somebody above me, the direction was not to go get medical attention immediately.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, exactly.
Was that just because they didn't want to have to report an injury and do the paperwork and get in possible trouble for?
I reported it. There was video, so I made an accident report. So it was noted exactly what happened. I said it word by word and explanation. Plus, there was a video to confirm everything that I said. But I wasn't directed to go to get medical help, because I wasn't feeling any type of way other than my body was warm. Now, had I felt something like, oh my God, I can't walk, or I'm dizzy or something like that, of course that would have been immediate. And I wouldn't even have questioned. I would have fought it. I was like, no, I'm going somewhere. But I really didn't know that I was injured,
Okay. So maybe just not an understanding of the signs that your body was giving you at that time.
Yeah, it was.
Even though, go ahead.
Yeah, I was, like I said, I just felt warm. I just didn't feel injured.
Yeah. And do you know
how long was it till you actually made it to doctor or hospital?
The next day.
Okay.
The next day, about midday, less than 24 hours later, I was like, wait a minute, I got to get checked out. Something's going on here.
Yeah. Well, Dan and I just had a midair collision when I was about to ask a question. And Dan might actually be positioned to answer this as well. But do you know what that warmth is? Because Dan was a paramedic. Do either of you understand what that body's response is that made you feel warmth instead of pain?
Well, typically when you hurt yourself and you strain yourself, your body, it's almost like it tries to protect itself. It goes into like shock.
Okay.
And to prevent injuries when the injury pretty much already happened. It's like a reflex. Mm-hmm. That's why the body warms up. But when it cools down, that's when you really feel it.
Sure. And I will say that I've had...
Would you agree with that, Dan?
Yeah. Yes. And if you injured your spine, you got all kinds of nerves there. So who the hell knows what else? Nerves do all sorts of crazy things when you touch them.
Yeah.
So, there's a swelling response, right? That brings blood to everywhere too. A lot going on when you injure yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And I've had injuries, not to that extent, but it seems like in the times where I've been more injured, I feel less in that moment, right? And it is your body's coping. And, you get a paper cut and that hurts like a son of a bitch, right? Yeah. But at the time that I broke a bone, the immediate pain didn't really come until an hour or two later. And it's just interesting how the body works. But when you went to get help or went to seek medical attention, was that your decision, or did you have someone saying, hey, George, I think you better go?
Oh, no, that was my decision. Now, and I'm glad you said about broken bones, because logically, I also thought, because when I was 12 years old, I fell off a slide and I broke my arm.
Okay.
And as soon as I fell on the floor and I broke my arm, I was like paralyzed. I couldn't move my body because the traumatic event, it froze me. I couldn't do anything. My grandfather had to pick me up. So when this injury happened and I didn't feel any kind of way, I figured, okay, maybe nothing happened. But of course I was wrong, because it was worse than I thought it was.
Okay. So did you go to like a hospital emergency room? What was that?
Yeah, I went to the ER and I said, look, I had an accident yesterday and my body's acting a certain way. I think I might have a serious problem here. And then I told him because my legs also started being like they started to feel like numb
Okay.
because I already had like pinched nerves. I couldn't even turn my neck because of the pinched nerve on my neck.
Oh, that's terrible. Did someone take you? I mean, were you able to drive or anything, or did someone
I
take you?
think my mom took me actually. I asked my mom to take
Moms.
me.
Moms are
Oh,
always good for
mom.
that.
Yeah, I go, Mom, you know what? This is what was it my mom? No, it was my mom actually. Yeah.
All right. Well, even if it wasn't, let's just say it's your
Yeah.
mom.
No, I asked my mom. Yeah, I asked Mommy, take me, Mommy. I'm injured.
Absolutely. That is the best place to go. Mom's always going to help out. So when you got to the hospital and started speaking with the professionals and said that something ain't right, what did they do? Like, what kind of tests did they start running?
Well, the first thing they did was freaking give me medication. That's the first thing they did because the pain had already kicked in. I was like,
Okay.
Oh yeah, I was very aggressive when I walked in there.
Okay.
And so they gave me some pain medication. They said, okay, we're gonna check you out. They put me in a tube and did all kinds of stuff on me. And then they come back and says, well, yeah, well, we found a problem. You got 3 herniated discs, L5 mid spine and in your neck.
Wow.
I'm like, shit. Okay.
Wow,
And
they
then,
weren't
and
even
then
all together.
yeah, and then that was like a transition at that point just to say like, okay, well, this is what we need to do. They got me on some medication. We have to let for the swelling to come down because they're not really going to be able to do anything for you. So they got to get the swelling down, and then we're going to take it like, days at a time, weeks at a time, to see how we're going to tackle this now issue that you now have. And that's the part that I didn't like was the medication. It was so freaking strong, man. It is.
Okay. Did you realize just how hard it was going to be to recover at that point?
It scared me, really.
Okay.
It scared me because I was 39 years old. My daughter was young. And from what I can feel, I was like, am I ever going to be able to carry my grandkids if I have grandkids? Because I couldn't do anything. My legs would give up on me. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't sit. I couldn't stand. I'm like, wow. I don't know how serious this is going to be, but I was scared. And it was the first time in my life that I was scared because I felt like that I was going to be useless with that type of injury. And of course I had the medication in my body, so it was just making me go in all directions, of course.
Yeah, and I was going to ask that, like, what was, you said that the medication was the worst part. Or are you talking about, like, the initial medication they had you on, or were you on this for a long time?
I was on medication for 2.5 years.
Oh, the whole time?
Yeah.
And what kind of meds? Are we talking opiates?
This is one step level than opiates, I think. Because that word, I didn't know that word until I found out that the United States had that problem. So I had never heard that word before.
Yeah,
But
I think that's probably a lot of us.
Yeah, but I had heard that this is like the most we can give you, and the highest thing we can give you. But that was not the highest thing. The highest thing was opiate. That was the highest thing. But they didn't give me that. Thank God they didn't give me that because I would have got hooked on that shit. You know what I mean?
Right.
Was there any point when you asked if you could be removed or try something else?
No, because it was just taking away the pain, and for me, the thing is, I mean, take this pain from me because it was unbearable. I mean,
yeah. Did you feel any pain while you were still on it? Did it completely eliminate it?
It did. It made me numb. Imagine your arm falling asleep and you don't feel anything. You're like, dude, what's going on with my arm? It's like I couldn't feel any pain, but at the same time, I also felt numb, like I was a zombie. Mm-hmm. And that's the part that also scared me too. I looked at myself in the mirror one day. Like, that's not George Namir.
Yeah.
Who is this guy? It ain't me.
Well, that even sounds dangerous because pain is the body communicating with us, right?
Yeah.
So if you're on something that is eliminating one pain, it's possible to miss other pain. You could injure yourself. You could have other internal issues that you don't feel if it's keeping you numb all the time. And I think you're using numb in kind of two ways, unless I'm misunderstanding. Is this a mental and a physical numbness that we're talking about?
It was. It was a physical and it was a mental numbness. And that part, like you said, that when you medicate yourself in one area, you take that pain off. Well, it didn't allow me to feel my emotional pain and my psychological pain that problem had created for me. Mm-hmm. And that's what got me to like this depressing state and suicidal thoughts and stuff like that. Because I mean, I didn't know. It's almost like I was confused. I didn't know what was going on. Like, is this real? Is it not real? I mean, I don't feel anything, but I'm taking the medication, which is why I don't feel anything. But yet, it almost felt like that I was non-existing, even though I was alive. Almost, it was that horrible for me.
Wow.
And were you off of work this whole time too, or were you able to?
I was out for 3.5 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't lay down on my bed. It was so uncomfortable.
So what did you do?
I try to just be how a couple minutes sitting this, sitting up, laying down, standing, kind of try to walk a little bit. I was caught in between those places, but I couldn't be there for too long. I'm like, wow, this is really uncomfortable. And then my spine surgeon said, I need you to get comfortable because this is how you're gonna be at. It's like, no, this is not how I'm gonna be at.
I'm gonna interrupt really quickly. This is the first time I heard surgeon, I think, unless I missed it before.
No, that's the first time I said it. Yeah.
You had operations?
No, I refused.
Oh, okay.
I refused, but
because
they send me to a spine surgeon, and I went through therapy. And it says, George, we've done everything we can. You're on the medication. We're doing this. We're doing therapy. We need to do surgery and cut that area. I need to give you a shot in those areas. And that's pretty much all we can do. It's like, first of all, I'm not going to let you cut me. And I'm not going to let you stab me in the spine. I'm not going to do that. I'll let you give me a shot in the neck, but I'm not going to let you touch my freaking spine. That's not going to happen. That's not an option for me. At that point, they released me at that point.
Okay. Wow. Well, how long were you going through like physical therapy before they recommended surgery?
2 years.
Wow. And at the 2-year mark when you're doing this, are you still at this point? And maybe I just didn't understand before, but are you still at that point where sitting hurts, laying hurts, everything?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, because I try to come down on the medication. Mm-hmm. Oh, it hurts! I take it again to ease that pain again.
Yeah,
it was.
Did you have any? Did you have any like withdrawal from the medication?
I did afterwards. Yeah. It took me. I want to say that I had withdrawal symptoms for maybe 30, maybe 60 days. I mean, I felt horrible. I felt like I was like somebody drugged me. If I was hungover. Like when you don't sleep and you're hungover, I felt like shit like that for 30 to 60 days.
Did you have any help? Was there anything that they put you on that would help reduce the symptoms?
I did it all on my own, and I didn't tell my family about that what I was struggling with.
That was my next question.
I kept that to myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And did the doctors even know?
I didn't tell them.
Okay.
Because I was afraid they were going to give me something else to help cope with that, and now I didn't want to be on medication anymore.
So was there a point, did something happen that made you say, fuck this, I'm done with the medication, I'm just going to do this on my own?
Yeah, it did. And this is what happened. I'm glad you asked that. So one day, about 2.5 years in, like I mentioned, I got like this silence, and I was just there. And I'm like, is this as low as I can go in life? Because that was like my low point. Mm-hmm. You know, I wasn't scared of being in that dark place, the suicidal thoughts and the darkness and whatnot, depression. I wasn't scared. But I also felt like if God was protecting me in that area, in that darkness. And I was like, if life tried to fucking destroy me, it didn't do it. If this is all it has, this is where I get out. because I know I don't belong here. And that's when I made a decision to get off the medication. And then I remembered things about my grandfather, my father, and of course my daughter, and how I wanted to be an inspiration for her life. So I had to get out of that place at that point.
I think that might have been one of my favorite quotes that we've had on this show so far. Not this episode. I already forgot. I was going to repeat it back. If it didn't get me, or however he said that. But since I don't have the exact words, I'm not going to try to sit here and figure out what they were. But I was also thinking in my mind, that's what decent fucking humans do. They do it. They see a challenge. It might be 2.5 years into it, but they see it, or 3 years, whatever exactly the timeline was, and they do something. So that's incredible. But you also had this long career.
Yeah.
And we've talked to people who have lost their jobs, and I left my job recently. I'm spending a lot of time getting caught up on YouTube and TikTok, which is probably not the best thing for me, but when you lose your job or leave a job, there's a lot of emotional stuff with that as well. So was departing from this career, was that scary? What was that experience, I guess? I don't want to put words into your mouth.
The scary part was, like I said, I felt useless at that point. I felt like I wasn't a provider. I felt like I wasn't a man. Mm-hmm. And then I felt like I wasn't, fulfilling my obligation as a man and the man of the house. I wasn't doing that. And that was the scary part. But being injured, there was nothing I can do. Yeah. But when I came off the medication, now I was able to think straight, because for 2.5 years, I couldn't even think straight. I couldn't even gather my thoughts. But when I got off the medication, I heard this whisper, and that whisper said real estate. Because I didn't know what career I was going to go, because I can't go back there. I'm freaking injured. What am I going to do?
Right.
And I heard this clear whisper that said real estate. And when I heard the real estate, I was like, okay, that's not far-fetched, because I was doing kitchen and bathroom models and rehabs with my dad and my uncle at the age of 14.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I bought my first property at 21, my second at 25, a third at 27, and a nineplex before the market crash in 2008. So I was familiar with real estate. I had an investing background in real estate, so I was able to make that transition into real estate. So I was once I made a decision to reclaim my life back, I was okay at that point, because especially after that whisper, it gave me like that peace of mind that, okay, now I just found a new direction now.
Right.
Now, when you say real estate, are you a real estate investor? Do you sell real estate? I mean, there's about 3,000 ways you can be in real estate. So what do you do now?
So I was a real estate investor when I was a manager, and now I'm a real estate agent. So now I help people that are first-time home buyers. I help a lot of investors. And what I focus on is properties that are ugly ass houses. I don't try to show my clients the most beautiful house, walk-in ready house. I show them the ugly parts first, and then if they don't want to buy a property that needs work and rehab, then we start looking at houses that are walk-in ready. But the thing is that if you buy a house that needs work, you can actually buy it with some sweat equity, and you buy it with equity already. So, and when I explain it to them that way, they're like, wait a minute, George, I don't want this house and that's already fixed up, because I want to get it at a discount, put my taste into it, put some sweat equity, and I can save some money and actually earn some money at the same time. It's like,
sure.
Absolutely. So I'm able to show them those aspects of it. Yeah.
Hey, Dan, would you like me to step away so you and George can just talk about this the rest of the interview?
Let's talk houses. Enough about feelings. Let's just talk houses, real estate strategies, force and equity.
For years, Dan has been whispering about buying places, fixing them up. I've got a question. You said, I think Southern California is where you're at. Prices out there. I mean, I don't know who the hell can afford to buy a house that doesn't need some work. Can you get kind of some price ranges that you're working with? I'm just curious more than anything.
Look, I just did an open house for a listing that my buddy has, my partner has, and it's a duplex.
Okay.
Property has 6 bedrooms, all right? 4 bedrooms in the main house, 2 bedrooms on the addition, which is a duplex. And that property was for $699.
Okay.
and you're able to build an ADU in the garage because the whole state of California allows you that now my daughter's boyfriend sent me a text yesterday on Instagram asking me if this price was right because he had saw a duplex in LA for 575 no 5 575 or 565. I did a little research on him. I was like, that was a great freaking deal in LA for a duplex also.
Yeah.
So there's properties that are available, but you just have to be ready to accept the fact that these are great deals and see so much of the market. So by the time I show you a property or you see a property, you're like, wait a minute, from all the property that George has been sending me, this makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
This looks like I can cash flow from it. If I don't cash flow, I can live in one and rent the other one out and help lower my monthly mortgage by more than half because I'm going to live in half of it and rent the other half out.
You're good at this, George. You're good at this.
I love what I do. Yeah, I love what I do.
I'm going to go back a minute. I know we're right on that verge. We're talking about the happy stuff right now, but I do want to go back a minute and ask you about something that you said. You said that when you weren't working and you weren't providing, that you didn't feel like a man. And I'm curious, looking back now, if you have let me call it a more compassionate view for yourself during that time.
I know I not only have a more compassionate view of myself, but I have a much bigger understanding of my journey now.
Okay.
Because God has allowed me access when I wrote my book to have access to everything behind all the way back to when I was born.
Okay.
To make me realize that all the obstacles that I went through, all the sacrifices, all the adversity, all the issues that I went through, they were needed to mold me and forge me into this person that I am today. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I'm like, shit, I was one touch son of a bitch. I was tough.
Sounds like you still are.
I didn't, thank you. I didn't tap out. Yes, I cried, I screamed, and I yelled. Yes, I did, because that's normal.
Yeah.
But what I didn't do was tap out and say I quit. I didn't do that. I might have taken a break because I was in that space of 2.5 years, but I was still fighting internally, even though physically I couldn't do anything. Mm-hmm. And once I got off the medication, then I really got back to work, because that's when I was really able to reclaim my life back at that point.
Okay, so from the time that you weaned yourself from the medication, how long did it take you to get to that point where you felt that your life is back?
When I got my real estate license.
Okay, and how long was that?
It was about a year later.
Okay.
Because I was out for about 3.5 years, so about a year later, and I was able to pass that exam. And it's funny because I took my real estate exam, and when I took my exam, the lady at the counter says, "Okay, George, here's your exam results. It's not going to say you're presented. It's only going to say pass or fail. Please do not open this up until you get outside of the building." So I parked at a 3-story parking structure. I waited until I went to my car. I opened up my car, sat in the door jamb of my car. I opened it up, and I just started crying. Because at that moment, I knew that I reclaimed my life back when I said passed.
Wow. I
was able to now become that man that I've always been, which is the provider, the person that's always hustling, working, and getting things done. So I felt like I reclaimed my life at that point.
Yeah, you know what my favorite part about this show is the goosebump moment. It's like when you say you read it and it was like, yes, that I mean, the hair on my arm stands up. And first of all, I say this to a lot of our guests, or at least I think it, but man, I'm proud of you. That's awesome. Sounds like you're a hell of a guy. Now I'm curious about the support system you've got. You said you have a daughter. You mentioned, maybe you wouldn't be able to hold your grandchildren if you ever have them. Do you have grandchildren yet?
I don't have grandchildren.
Okay.
My daughter actually turns 25 tomorrow. Tomorrow's her birthday.
Okay.
Nice.
Well,
happy birthday to her. That's awesome.
yeah, happy birthday. It's a couple months late since this probably won't air until February. But no, hey, 25 years old, I say that's a good time to still not have children. It can be hard at that age. Not that it ever gets easy from what I understand, but I'm in my 40s without any kids. So, but George, I've got one more question, and then I'm going to ask you to tell us about this journey in this book. When you said that they ask you not to open until you leave the building, why is that?
They wanted to make sure that there was no reaction from anybody.
Okay.
So because other people, they're still there, and some people, when obviously, if you fail, you start crying, hysterically, or
if you pass, you start crying.
You start getting yelling, excited.
Yeah.
And they want to make sure that they don't disturb anybody. So
it's out of the respect for others.
For everybody. Yeah.
Okay. And I suspected that much. I just wanted to make sure my understanding was correct.
And I completely understood that, because from my understanding too, is that most people don't pass the real estate exam on the first attempt.
Oh, wow.
It takes them 4 to 5 times to pass it.
Okay.
It's extremely difficult. So when she said that, I'm like, okay, that's respectful. Okay, of course, yeah.
Okay.
But when I saw that, I'm like, I started crying for like 20 minutes in my car.
Well, I lied before in saying one more question. Last question for real on this topic. Who was the first person you called?
My mom.
It comes full circle. Hell yes.
I called my mom. Because my mom had gone through so much with me emotionally.
Yeah.
And because she helped me go through to some of my doctor's appointments and stuff like that. And she, when I had the injection on my neck, because they gave me an injection on my neck, she took me to Santa Barbara. And when I went to Santa Barbara, she drove me over there because I wasn't going to be able to drive back.
Uh-huh.
And they put me to sleep, and they had a hard time waking me up.
Okay.
And this was the second time in my life that I was having a hard time to wake up from anesthesia.
Oh, wow.
So it was really emotional for me. So I had to make sure that I gave my mom the good news first, especially from what she experienced with me, taking me to doctor's appointments and stuff like that.
Okay. Mom's still with us?
Oh, yeah. She's 73 years old. My mom's she's amazing. She's like my angel. She's always been protecting me.
Oh, all right. Well, hopefully she doesn't take issue with Dan and I and you swearing, but she sounds like a decent fucking human as well. We don't do that very often. But she sounds pretty awesome. So this book, tell us a little bit about the book. What's it called?
Yeah, my book is called Answer the Call, and Answer the Call is about finding your gifts, your talents, and pursuing your life's purpose.
Okay. And you said I think the way you said it was that it's kind of about your journey. Is that correct? Or is
correct,
it just okay?
Yeah. So it's like it's the journey. So it's a journey of somebody that would be like a full-rounded individual. So I talk about foundation. I talk about influence. I talk about adversity, betrayals, reinventing yourself, faith, and success. So basically what one goes through our journey in our lifetime. Yes.
All right. And you're a passionate dude. That comes across loud and clear. And when we last spoke, you even talked a little bit about how your calling, maybe, I don't remember if you used that term, but is about spreading your message. And that it sounds to me like you have a mission. And is that something I noticed your necklace? You've talked about God a little bit. Is this a journey of faith, or is it just a journey of life?
Well, when I was early teen, I always had this feeling that I was special, and I always had this knowing that there was a huge calling in my life. But because I was a teenager, I hadn't even lived life yet, so I didn't know what that was yet. But I was pretty faithful, knowing that when the time was right, certain things would expose themselves to me to really show me my direction. But when I wrote the book, that's when I was given access to connect all the dots in my life. And I realized this is the calling of my life. I was meant to go through these bad things in my life to gain these experiences so I can motivate and inspire the people and help people cope through their adversity, suicidal thoughts, depression, job loss, betrayals, divorce, and all these other things. That's why I went through that. And for that reason, I accept everything that happened to me. And now I have a better understanding of that whole process now because of that.
Okay. Oh man, you know that moment where you forget your question. That's the moment I'm in right now. But one of the questions that I did have that I can't remember if we talked about it when you and I last talked, but are you working, like, we get a lot of people on here who are like coaches, or are like actually motivational speakers and things like that, or do you have more than just the book to spread your message?
Correct. Yeah. So I use my book as the platform
Mm-hmm.
to the things that I'm working on. So I get on I've done like 30 to 40 podcasts in the last 90 days. So I'm aggressively pursuing the podcasting. I've been in colleges. Thank you. I've been speaking in colleges, universities. Right now, I'm making my way into other schools right now. I'm getting people sending me stuff like, George, can you speak at my school? Because I want to reach and motivate the next generation, because there's a huge need for that. And also my battle machine that I invented, which I also talk in my book, is I want to put that in the hands of the youth going forward.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I invented a batting machine for baseball and softball, which I also talk about in the book.
I coach 8-year-olds playing baseball. Big baseball guy over here, so I'm interested in that. I'll learn more about that one when I get the book. But how do you? God, I'm going to admit something, that I've got a headache right now, and it is really affecting my ability to stay on point. Dan, this part we should probably edit out, so make a mark.
Oh, it's marked.
All right. So, George, what would you say is the biggest thing you've learned through all of this?
The biggest thing that I've learned through this whole journey is that the knowing that I've always had and the faith that I've always had was real. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that I made up. This was real. Mm-hmm. And God, and I'm not pushing religion on anybody, by the way.
Sure.
But God and my faith was able to show me, as I reached that point in my life where my life purpose had to expose itself, to reconfirm, yeah, you were right back then. You did know. And I think a lot of us know that we are special, and a lot of us know that we do have a gift, a talent, and life's purpose, mm-hmm. but we're afraid that, am I making this up, or is this really something that I'm meant to pursue? And I think the answer is yes, you are meant to pursue that. If God put it in your heart, and it just, you can't get rid of it in your mind, that means you have to pursue it. If not, it's going to haunt you forever until you get it done.
Right. If you're doing 35, 40 podcasts in 90 days, when are you doing your real estate? Are you still doing that, or have you kind of moved on a little bit?
Yeah, I just closed the deal 2 days ago, actually. Yesterday, 2 days ago. Yeah, just closed the deal 2 days ago. So okay. I am doing real estate, and of course, because of the recession and rates going up, it pushed a lot of buyers back out of the marketplace. But because the rates are starting to come down as of December 21st, rates are starting to come down. Okay. Now we're starting to get some of the buyers reaching out again, and some of the sellers reaching out again, saying, George, I mean, what's going on with the market? Do you have anything for me? I'm looking to invest in a property or to buy a property, stuff like that. I'm already considering selling again. Mm-hmm. So it's like it's coming back again. So it's funny because when things are slow for me, it's almost like God gives me a project. When I was disabled, he gave me the batting machine. When I was disabled, he gave me coming into real estate. When the recession came in and COVID came in, he told me to write the book. As the real estate market slowed down, he told me get on podcasts. So it's like he gives me things to do, but the thing is that it's all intertwined. They're not separated. It's intertwined because I talk about these things in my book. So when I meet a real estate client, I give them a copy of my book, so they get to know me on a personal level.
Okay.
When I'm on stage, I talk about real estate because the youth ask me, well, George, how can I invest in real estate? That's what the youth is asking me. So of course I got to talk about real estate because I love real estate, right? When I get on podcasts, people always ask me about real estate. So I'm still talking real estate. So I'm marketing real estate. So I'm talking about everything that I'm passionate about in interviews and on podcasts.
Man, you're a triple threat, at least a triple threat.
At least.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to know where I can get your book.
If you go to my my social media platforms at George_V Gonzalez and you go to my bio, you can actually download a free copy of my book. And all your listeners and all your followers can do the same. They can actually download a free copy of my book. There's a free version there.
Okay, awesome.
Nice. And you can have it in the show notes.
And you can also see other projects that I'm working on. You can also take a glimpse at my batting machine. There's also a link for that.
Okay.
Also my real estate and also a mini course that I have.
Okay. Awesome. Dan, you got anything else? Do you have any more questions for George? Because I think I'm plumb out.
Yeah. How about these interest rates? Think they'll ever go back down to 3%?
No, absolutely not. My personal opinion and my professional opinion, I think that the norm, because the consumer is really smart about rates now, is probably going to be between 4.5% to 5.5% is going to be the norm. And that's going to fluctuate depending on the marketplace and depending on the way the economy is doing. They're not going to stay the way they are now, but they're definitely not going to go to 1, 2, or 3. We're probably not going to see that. Yeah, that was way too low for way too long.
All right. Well, I'll stick with my 2.25 and be very happy with that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Don't lose that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Not that I wasn't happy with it already. I know what I've got here. I got a good place and a good rate. But yeah, George, man, this has been great. Thank you so much for coming on. I always say it. I'm humbled. Let me actually say we are humbled and honored and just so grateful that you're willing to come on and tell us this story. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share my story and my journey. And hopefully, I know that the stories that you interview about, they're touching and they have an impact on the community and society as a whole. So thank you for that.
Man, see, you're even motivating me right now.
Keep doing what, man. You are all pro.
Yeah. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Keep doing it.
All right, cool. And I appreciate that. And I will actually want to connect with you offline someday, I think, because I've got questions about what you're doing, because I really am. I think it's admirable, and we're trying to do some of the same over here. So, George, thank you again. This has been great. Terrible listeners, I would love for you to check out our merch store. We haven't talked about it much on here, but we've got an Etsy shop now. You can get decent fucking human clothing. You can get a lot of stuff there. Also follow us on our socials at Positively Terrible. And if you want to tell a fucked up story or talk to us about getting that decent fucking human tattoo, you can send us an email at podcast@positivelyterrible.com. And as always, this has been absolutely, positively terrible.
I met you back at Tonic Fest. I confess I was nervous and stressed because I thought you were the best. I was right. And that night we got into a water gun fight that I won. I shot you in the face. It was fate. I offered you a spree. You declined. I said, keep it, you might decide to change your mind. You did. Yeah, you did. Now I'm glad I got you in my life. confessed because I thought you were the best, I was right.
Positively Terrible is a part of the Terrible Podcast Network.